All right, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us at this special meeting of the Board of Education on 8/10/2020. I apologize for the delay. We're trying to maximize our YouTube feed. Could I get a roll call, Ms. Cropper?
Mrs. Barber?
Here.
Ms. Choice?
Here.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Here.
Mrs. Taylor?
Here.
Dr. Heights?
Here. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the
to the
flag
flag of the United
of the
States
United States of America
and to
and
the republic
for which it stands,
one
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 nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty
and
justice
justice
for
for all.
all.
All right. So item 3.1, motion to adopt the agenda. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Ms. Cropper?
Ms. Choice?
Yes.
Mrs. Barber?
Yes.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Dr. Heights?
Yes. Item 4.1, when everybody's here for the reopening plans. Mr. Prebbles. You need to unmute.
And in conclusion, okay, so I was saying thank you very much, Dr. Heiss, for board members coming to yet another meeting on the reopening of school. And I just want to make sure there's clarity in our community about what we're doing with the reopening in schools. There's been a lot of talk out there, a lot of questions, and a lot of concerns. So this is an opportunity for us once again to revisit the plans, revisit what we intend to do this year, and how we think it's going to be in the best interest, given the circumstances, for our students, for our staff, and hopefully the larger community. So on July 10th, the Board of Education affirmed a three-pronged plan, or a three-model plan. We all know what that is. It's similar to other school districts. We have a full face-to-face traditional model. We have a blended model of a hybrid, sort of in between face-to-face and something that would be virtual or remote. And then there is a full remote in case of a really bad surge in our local area or in Hamilton County or even across the state, where the governor of the state decides that once again it's important for the safety of all of us to potentially postpone school. So we have those three plans. They have not changed, but what we do need to talk about tonight is a couple of adjustments to ensure that those plans, that the traditional model that the board approved or affirmed the last time we were together, last couple times we were together, is still going to be moving forward, because we've had a lot of things happen since then. And so much work has been done between the last couple of months. I would be remiss if I did not thank, first of all, our association president, Donna Laver, and the work that she's done with us to try to help provide some assistance throughout the way on behalf of not only the students, but on behalf of the teachers and the school district. I also need to thank the teaching and learning team, which is led by Mr. Sears, and all of the individuals, the directors, principals, and teachers that have been leaning in over the last few months to be able to put something together, given our circumstances, that I think is the best we can do in this moment in time. I'd also like to thank our Classified Association leadership, those individuals who are not certified teachers, but are the cafeteria workers, the custodial staff, the maintenance people, the bus drivers, all of those individuals who assist us. They have had a voice, a little bit of a voice also in what we will be presenting this evening, just making sure that we're touching all the bases. I also want to thank our board members. There are many individual calls that are made between me and board members. I know that there are many people that reach out to board members with their thoughts and their concerns. Board members are responding to those through the president. There are also questions and comments that come to me that we try to respond to as quickly as we can with as much accurate information as possible. So I guess what I want to say is just a big thank you to everybody who's been involved. Blended and remote are two things that are very different. They would be perceived to be much different than what we traditionally provide in our schools in the traditional start of a school year. And I think when people hear the word traditional, that they are considering, you pull up to the school, you say goodbye to your child, give them a kiss, and out they go, and they go to their traditional day where everything works as it has for the last 100 years. And I would say that that's just not what we are going to experience. Our schools are going to be dramatically different in a transitional opening, even though the term traditional is there. There are many different things that our students will be encountering, and there are many different things that our teachers will be encountering, as well as providing for students in many different ways. There's been a lot of work to get us to this point, but I would like to remind everybody that although it says traditional, there are, as you know, many, many things that are different. Just taking our local restaurant experience as an example, there are many things that we're doing different in life right now, and that will be consistent in our school system. So we have statewide risk levels. We've talked about this a little bit. I don't want to dwell on it tonight, but right now, Hamilton County is in the orange level 2 area. It is consistent with what is recommended. These are guidelines. These are certainly not requirements that school districts, when you're in orange, you have the opportunity to have a full traditional back to school model. I would be remiss if I didn't say that the level 3 red is what we've been for a while, and that level 3 red is interesting to me. We've been able to still conduct youth sports and many other activities in that red zone, and have been able to, in some situations, still be able to mitigate or drop some of the numbers in Hamilton County that would bring us back to a level of orange. And there are 7 factors that are in the governor's model to be able to make a determination about a county and the risk level. And so, Adam, if we go to the applying the state guidance to the return to learn plans, you can see that in Forest Hills, we have a blended learning plan at level 3, and we have a traditional learning plan at level 2. And I want to remind people that level 2 and level 3 are very, very difficult areas for us to navigate as a school district, because there are indicators or metrics that apply to both of those levels that require a local decision to be made. And many people think we're receiving specific direction or specific requirements from the state of Ohio or from local health officials. That's just not the case. We toggle in that yellow and that orange and that red level, and in those areas is where we are working with local officials, watching local data, county data, and state data to make some decisions that are logical and appropriate for our students and our staff and their health. And so that level 2 and level 3 are really very difficult for school districts to navigate through, because there aren't any requirements other than the governor's mask requirements in the state of Ohio that apply to all of the levels right now. So we have a plan for our traditional entry, and the larger plan is that has some elements to it that I think we need to talk about. What is it that helps us make our decisions about how school will reopen, and the rationale sort of for why we believe this is a good idea? First of all, we need to be considering universal source control. That is all about safety. That is all about the things that we can do in our school district to the best of our ability, provide the safest environments for our students and our staff, not to mention our parents, visitors to the building, and community. And each day in a traditional model, when we begin, there will be more people congregating in our buildings, youth and teachers, than most likely in any other building in the Anderson Township or Newtown area. So this is serious business for us. So one of our plan elements, first and foremost, is the safety of our students and our staff. Education is our primary responsibility. That, absent of this, is our main goal, but given COVID, safety appears on the list as number 1. I hope people can understand that. Education is certainly number 2. We need to provide the Forest Hills education that people admire, that people expect. And I would say to you that in any one of these models, other than our traditional, real traditional back to school model, where we have everything in place and we're moving forward, there are going to be stresses, and we're not going to be providing at some places the same level of education. Our teachers are going to work hard. They are going to work hard. Our students are going to work hard, but the circumstances make it a little bit more difficult than the typical year. In any event, education is something that drives our academic, our social emotional, and we want to make sure that our special needs students in a traditional model have the best benefits possible. Any other model than traditional is very cumbersome for students with special needs, very cumbersome for students who are non-English speakers, gifted education, and all of the things that we provide as additional services become much more difficult when we're not in a full face-to-face environment. So education is very important to us. Monitoring is another big part of the plan, not only monitoring health data and how things are going with COVID, but actually monitoring how progress is taking place in the day. Are our safety mitigations working? Are students and staff aware and understand and complying with what we're asking them to do to ensure that we have a safe environment? Monitoring how our students' health is, how our staff's health is, actually monitoring places where maybe our students will be competing with other schools, depending upon what happens with the Ohio High School Athletic Association and additional rulings, but monitoring the environment, monitoring our health, and monitoring our operations. Then obviously communication is a big part of anything that we're doing, because we need to clearly inform people to the best of our ability of what we are doing, what their expectations are, how those two connect together, and how we have consistent feedback back and forth, where one hand is sort of helping the other as we work through this very difficult time. So if we go to the next slide, we talk about safety a little bit closer. I'm not talking about health data at this point. I'm talking about mitigation efforts in our school district. So if safety is a primary objective of ours, we need to have mitigation efforts in place. Our masks, our distancing. Over the past 4 weeks, we've been reviewing the sizes of rooms, the space in rooms, the furniture in rooms, varied teaching approaches that we can use within our classrooms, and varied ways that we can interact with students. And so the mitigation, the capacity to be able to educate not only our staff, but our students on the safe operation in the school building, from drinking fountains to restrooms to the lunchroom and cafeteria, learning commons, large spaces, small spaces. All of those things are important for us. And so we believe we've put a very robust plan together for mitigation purposes to protect the safety of our students and our staff. In regard to the mitigation efforts, you see on there a staggered start to the school year. And we've worked with our local associations and our teachers, and we've talked with other school districts, and we see a model that seems to be the most progressive in the area, is to have sort of a softer start to the school year. So in this model that I'm sharing, this is the first significant change that is important when you think about communicating to students, staff, and the community. I am going to ask that the board follow through or affirm that this is not going to be a normal start to the school year. And so what I am proposing in this plan that we would move forward with, actually recommending strongly that we move forward with, is that on the 27th of August, we have half of our students, K through 12, one half of our students to be determined, and people will be notified in the upcoming week. So on the 27th, we would have sort of an A group of kids, half of our students, or similar to half of our students throughout the school district. On the 28th, then, those students would stay home, and the other half of our students would report to the school building. And so we'd have a staggered start on the 27th of August and the 28th. We would then have a weekend, and we would come back to those students who were in Group A, who went to school on the 27th, would go on the 1st of September, but they would not go on the 2nd. That's when the second group of B students would come back. So if you're following along here, the 27th, Group A, the 28th, Group B. The 1st, after the first weekend, Group A. The 2nd, after the first weekend, Group B.
Scott, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think the 1st is a Tuesday, so it'd be August 31st. Monday?
I'm sorry, you're correct. Okay, so then the second, third, and fourth, we would have full traditional school. So we'd have the A group the first day, the B group the second. We'd have a weekend. The very next day, Monday, we would come back to a group A, then group B, to Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday would have a full traditional schedule. That would get us to the Labor Day weekend. We'd have a 3-day weekend there, and then we would have a 4-day week that would naturally be there because of the holiday. And then after that, we would be fully traditional from that point, 5 days face-to-face. And because I may have added some confusion to this, I apologize to that. Thank you for the correction of the date. But that's what I am proposing, is that we slowly or stagger our start into the school year so that our students on the first day, you can imagine, since everything will be different, we want to make sure that we break it down, give our staff an opportunity to be able to manage the volume of students in the building, make sure that all of the protocol and processes of the building work, all the scheduling works. Do that again on the second day for the second group. Ease into it again as we come back on the next Monday and Tuesday. Then bring them into Wednesday when everybody's had plenty of time to kind of get acclimated and understand traffic patterns and how they eat lunch and where they eat lunch and all of the things with face masks and all that type of stuff. And then when we would go into full traditional after that, using the Labor Day weekend as a 3-day weekend. And so that is the first big change that is part of the agreed to or affirmed traditional start for our school district that I need people to be aware of. Everything that we're doing is in safety. Also, we have the Hamilton County Health Department. All of our plans are approved by them. We have county health officials, and those officials, along with us, are reviewing the American Academy of Pediatrics as well as the Centers for Disease Control for our guidelines, and we are using local health data to help make those decisions. And so we're in coordination with Hamilton County. Also, new to the school district in the last probably week, and other school districts in Hamilton County, thanks for Greg Kesterman and his team at the Hamilton County Health offices. They are going to provide the district, and we've already made contact. Our inside person, Mr. Eckert, is working with this individual, so we will have a contact tracing individual from Hamilton County that will be assisting us in the situations where we have suspected or even confirmed cases of COVID. And we will follow the CDC protocol, and all of those protocols are on our district website, and they are approved by local health officials. We've also started to think about in the last week, well, not the last week, but over the last week, we've gotten supplies from Hamilton County Educational Service Center that are PPE supplies, masks, gloves, and thermometers. And so we are currently working on a plan to institute thermometers in our school district in part of our safety plans for individuals who come to the building after the building has been open to students and the day is moving, and anyone who would happen to come to our school either late as a student or as a parent or a visitor to get through the office into the building, they would have to take temperature checks. We are also instituting them if you are a parent of a student who is participating in an after-school activity. You've already seen that is working. There are other school districts across the country who are using substantial dollars to purchase large, like what you'd find in the airport, thermometers that detect heat when students walk into the building. The practicality of that for 2 reasons: 1, the cost, and 2, the ability to be able to manage that is some things that we're working through right now. But we are implementing temperature checks in places within our school where it makes sense and it is able to be accomplished in a professional and in a private way, so to speak. The next one that is part of our plan is education. And this is really important because now we're getting into some significant things that our teachers will be working on over the next few days into weeks to prepare for the upcoming school year. And much of what I am going to talk about now has been discussed with our teaching staff at meetings that they had Friday, and today during the day to try to make sure our staff is informed of what's coming, so that they have a sense of all of that before it's just sort of presented in a format like this. But the second change that I want to talk to, well, first of all, I'd like to say that we want, to the greatest extent possible, to have our staff be working with our students. So when we think about education, the hallmark of the Forest Hills education is the teaching staff, the paraprofessionals, the intervention specialists, the reading specialists, all of those people who are wrapped around the students on a daily basis. That's what makes Forest Hills what it is, including the bus drivers and the cafeteria and the maintenance. But specific to education, we want our people with our students, because we believe that our people are the best that we could possibly find, acquire, hire, and train to do this work. So to make that happen, we're going to have to adjust some of the things in our school district. And some of this is based on virtual signups. The number of students who signed up for virtual, it's sort of a 10th school that we are putting into place with the same staff, the same staffing that we had before. So you can imagine how we're beginning to take the virtual signups and we're starting to make cohorts of students, assign them to staff, assign staff to schedules, and so we're doing that. Well, while that's taking place, we also need to make sure that all of our traditional students have adequate staff available to them. And here's the key. Remember, we were talking about safety a few minutes ago. We need the environment to be safe. So to have our staff in front of our students, we have made some specific decisions about online curriculum, about virtual education, about MOUs related to streaming or recording lessons. There's all sorts of things taking place to ensure that our staff is with our students. So a big change, and this is one that I will apologize for before I mention it, is that it is a change for our everyday, all-day kindergarten students. To be able to ensure that we have lower class sizes across our elementaries and increased distance between our teachers and our students, we're going to reassign our all-day, everyday kindergarten staff to help cover classes where virtual students have been assigned. And so to do that, what we will be doing is having 14 sections in our elementary school have lower class sizes commensurate with the other classes in our schools so that we can keep a lower class size and increase distance between our students. And there will be an email tomorrow or this week that will be coming to all ADK parents to talk about AM and PM information regarding your student. I fully recognize, our entire team fully recognizes the burden that this is going to place on a subset of our students in the elementary and their parents. And so we wanted to get that information out as soon as we could, given the circumstances with what we're trying to accomplish in our school system with a traditional start. And even if we were in a blended model, this would be the recommendation coming from the superintendent, to be able to spread those teachers across the elementary, reduce class sizes, increase distance, and maintain a safe environment. At the middle school, there will be many adjustments being done. The master's schedule has been totally ramped to make teachers more available. So in the middle school, while our all-day kindergarten teachers will be teaching different courses in different grade levels, our middle school teachers will be taking on more core courses with their students, again, adding courses or adding sections, adding a load to the teacher to be able to spread the students out in our classrooms. Once again, reducing class sizes, increasing distance, safety is paramount in this particular model with the middle school. We will need to be hiring 2 aides in that building to be able to help with the supervision of the cafeteria, of the learning commons, of the hallways, because the former schedule had some requirements of staff members in those areas. To be able to make sure that we have our best instructional experts in front of our students, we're going to be looking for assistance with 2 aides to be helping in the middle school. At the high school, we will be increasing our staff assignments again, and we will be increasing our virtual, not requirements, but our expectations of teachers. We have been collapsing classes. We have been condensing classes. Just like in the middle school, the master schedule has been almost redone to ensure that we can get as many opportunities for students who chose specific singleton courses, curriculum, to be able to have those courses. We've worked very closely with our association to work on language in our contract to be able to help move this along, to be able, again, to reduce the number of students in classes and be able to maximize the distance between those students. And so that's a third change that will be happening, and that's part of tonight's board agenda, where we will ask the Board of Education to pass an MOU that was crafted between our association leadership and the administration to be able to make that an opportunity for teachers at the high school to have more choice in the design that they would like to use to instruct their students. We've also purchased virtual curriculum, not to the level that other school districts have. The virtual curriculum that we will be using potentially is Accelerate in our grades 1 through 6. We're going to be working with our teachers. I believe that it's important for teachers to be the final deciding group on that based on the virtual classes that they have and the students that they're teaching and the changes that they're dealing with. So we haven't made an absolute choice on what that virtual curriculum will be. That will be up to our elementary teachers working with their colleagues, their principals, and Mr. Sears and the teaching and learning team. We've always used APEX at the upper levels to be able to give to students the opportunity to get graduation requirements. We've extended our model with APEX at the high school in grades 7 through 12 to provide our high school teachers and middle school teachers some options in how they might want to address the virtual classes that they will be covering. And we also are going to be purchasing a lot of technology devices for our for our students. So we have accessibility, we have bandwidth, we have all the things essential to do the best we can educationally in the circumstances that we're in. So briefly, again, we'll be sending information to all-day kindergarten parents about what will be happening with AM, PM kindergarten. We will be asking the board this evening to be passing an MOU to ensure that we can do the things that we need to do virtually with our middle school and high school teachers. And we will also be approving, probably at the next board meeting, well, it would need to be at the next board meeting, staff members to assist, classified staff to assist with the supervision of the building at the middle school. The next slide that I have there is the monitoring and the flexibility, and I talked about this a little bit earlier. Risk assessment. There is no model that we can think of in this environment without a vaccination and without some breakthrough in healthcare that's not going to come without risk. And so what we're trying to do is monitor that risk and assess that risk, and I say this on a daily basis. I'm on the Hamilton County website daily. I know how many cases there are in our zip codes. I know how many cases there are in our county. I talk with officials a week. I'm aware of how many hospital beds are available. I'm aware of how many ICU beds are available. I'm aware of a lot of statistics that prior to this I would never have been involved in, but I've certainly learned a lot. So when we think about risk assessment, we think about, a lot of people call me and they say, Mr. Prebles, tell me the 5-step metric. Tell me the 4 or the 6 things that you're looking at. And when you get to the 6th one, or the 6th one comes off, that means you change models. Well, it's not that easy in our school district, and it's not that easy across the state. We toggle, and will most likely toggle between that orange and red, and so local decisions become very important. So what's important for our community to know, for our parents and students, is that we are following the CDC. We are following the American Academy of Pediatricians. We are working with state, with county, and local officials on all of the guidelines to make sure that what we're doing to the best of our ability is logical, is rational, and is in good faith, and is in the best interest of our students. So we're talking at the county, the local level about an R factor in our school or in our county. I'd like to let people out there know that in the last 5 weeks, we have been below the 1.0 threshold. We've been as low, we've been in the 0.86, the 0.94, but during the last 5 weeks, Hamilton County has been in the low transition factor range, which is a good thing. I've also learned that in 9 of the last 14 days, our numbers of COVID confirmations have gone down. So on a 14-day period, they take a look at that, and in 9 of the 14 days, our numbers have gone down. And I think that's why you see that we've moved from red to yellow. And people are looking every day. It's sort of like the stock market. You have to watch the trend. You have to watch where it's going and make decisions to try to influence that. So the day-to-day information that you get, although it is very, very important, it doesn't necessarily dictate how you make decisions for your school district, not only for our school district, but in the county. So we do take a look at zip codes. We want to be local. We want to understand what's happening in our small area. We match that up against the county data, and we match that up against the state data. And I would say to you right now, on July 10th, when I gave my first presentation about zip codes, and I will again remind everybody that zip codes are one factor, not all. They are all combined to make a decision. But at that time, the state had a 0.57 average, a 0.49 at the county level, and a 0.18. That's the percentage of people in our areas who have confirmed COVID. So all of them under 1, but certainly our zip codes in the 0.18 is less than half and almost 3 times less than the state. When we look at them today, about a month later, August 10th, they have all gone up. More testing, more confirmations, more people observing this data, and most specifically, more testing. But we have 0.85 at the state level, 0.62 at the county level, and we are at 0.28. So once again, our local data tells us that we are below the threshold that we're seeing at the county and below the threshold that we're seeing at the state. When you match that up against the 9 to 14 days, when you match that up against the transmission factor, when you match that up against the mitigation and the CDC regulations and everything else, it begins to paint a picture to make a decision about schools. And not any one of those factors in and of themselves is more important than another, but the trend is what we're watching. So there's no silver bullet, no metric, and certainly we have not received any requirement from the state of Ohio to reopen or not reopen, other than to make sure we're wearing masks and to make sure that we have flexible plans to be able to toggle in and out depending upon the health circumstances in our community. On the next slide, it's about communication. I'm going to try to finish up my comments here. Communication is important. We want to be communicating, and you'll be getting more information over the next week. Schedules, academic expectations for students, safety protocol, internal safety protocol, and external protocol. What I mean by that is making sure that our students understand what the expectations are, not only in school, but in the virtual academy that we have going forward, what the protocol is for traffic in the building, lunchrooms, things like that. So we will be communicating all of that information, and that's why I'm asking for a staggered start so that we can do that at a slower pace and a much more focused pace so that students and staff are working together and understand what they're trying to accomplish within their buildings. The external communication is including parents. It's really important. It is really important that parents go to our district website and they take a look on our website at the protocols and the tips and the expectations that we have of our students coming into the school. What I mean by that is a student should be showing up to the bus with a mask. No questions, no debate. They need to have a mask when they show up to the bus. If they forget it, we'll manage those things. If it falls off at school, we'll help with those things. But the reality is, the best doctors across the world, across the country, suggest that masks, if worn appropriately, cloth masks, help mitigate. When 2 people are together with appropriate distance, the mask seems to be one of the #1 things that helps stop the spread of COVID. The other thing we need is for our parents to really take seriously this notion of talking with your child in the morning before they come to school, knowing if they are not feeling well, and if they're not, or if they show some type of a symptom, to keep them at home. This is not the time where we say, well, go ahead and chance it. It's just not a good time to do that. And if they're not feeling well and their own immune system is down a little bit, then we wouldn't want to send them into a space where maybe they could catch COVID, and it's because their immune system is down a little bit. And I'm not a doctor, but just consider what you need to be doing with your child to ensure that they have the right materials to come to school and that you are checking to ensure that they are not sick. For our staff with communication, it's a big deal right now. It is a mammoth deal. So many of our staff are going to be displaced with expectations, not displaced from their buildings, but maybe displaced from their classroom or from their grade level or from the subject matter that they thought they were going to teach traditionally into a virtual. Or maybe even they thought they were going to teach something virtual and they're going to be teaching it traditionally. There's many different things taking place right now, and certainly there's more expectations of them right now. So we're going to be working on working with our staff on the communication and the preparation and professional development that's taking place. We built this in a long time ago to have professional development, and we've changed our calendar to make that happen. We recognize the importance of our staff understanding first how to keep themselves safe, second, how to be able to build capacity to be able to use technology in their classroom and different types of materials, and third on here again, the safety protocol to being able to take that themselves and be able to assist students and lead students to ensure that they are safe. So a tremendous amount of communication will be happening. Traditional class or parents, you're going to receive emails. And here's a fourth point that I wanted to bring up. There's going to be a survey coming out in the next week. It's going to be about technology, devices that are necessary in home, not only for traditional students, but for virtual students. And there will be a survey for transportation for parents whose children typically utilize transportation. This is much like the virtual choices that we made back in July. We need, please, for parents to give us some information about the devices that they need and the transportation model that they intend to use. When I say model, I mean, do you intend for your child to ride to school or not? That plays an important factor in our ability to be efficient and to ensure that we can get all of our students to and from school safely and know who we're going to be picking up and who we aren't. So virtual students and parents, you will be receiving information coming up in the next few days about your plans, the curriculum, the expectations, and all of those things with it. And principals over the next few weeks leading into the school year obviously will be providing their updates. You can go to the district website to seek safety tips and to look at protocols for what we're doing in our schools. Folks, we have received hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails and questions, and I'm not complaining about that. I fully respect that. I understand that. I am a parent myself. I want to know if my child is going to be in a good situation. And so all the questions that come in need to be answered, and keep sending them if you have additional questions, and we will do everything that we can to respond to that. The next part of the presentation, I'm going to shift to...
Scott, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
On the busing, for the survey you're going to send out, is there any preference? Do you want more people to ride the bus, or do you want more people to be carpooling in, or are you kind of indifferent? Because I know that if more parents drive it, if you've been in that line, it takes a lot of extra effort to do it. So I didn't know if the school had a preference in order to help facilitate the in and out of the students.
I am thankful that you asked that question. I believe, and I am indifferent, I believe that we should serve the needs of our students and our parents. However, a portion of that information that we are going to be receiving, we will be sharing with Anderson Township administrative officials who will be working with Mr. Broadwater on efficient ways in and out of buildings. And we've already changed, I think, some things that we're going to be doing at Nagel with the drop-off of students with the buses, some in the front, some on the side, to try to reduce the numbers of students. I know there's always concern in the Sherwood neighborhood, and we've talked to Steve Sievers and Vicki at the administrative offices, and so we'll be doing those things. But it's a good question. At this point, I think the goal is to serve the needs of our students and our parents. When we find out the information, we will then make adjustments to we will work with Anderson Township to be able to help us, and then we'll make those adjustments on our routes to ensure that we get kids to and from school safely. It's a great question. I'm sorry I missed it. Thank you. So now we're up to finance. Alana, are you there?
I am here.
Okay.
Thank you. I wanted to take a few minutes just to discuss the funding the district has received from the federal government's CARE Act and to update you on the changes in the 5-year forecast since we last reviewed the forecast in May. So to date, the district has received $599,000 in CARES Act resources. We have budgeted that money, as you see there on the slide. $371,000 went to student technology devices. $110,000 went to online curriculum, software licenses, and materials. We spent $18,000 on foggers. $18,000 gets you 3 foggers to be split district-wide. And we also have budgeted $100,000 to be used on cleaning and disinfecting materials and PPE. Just last Friday, we found out that we will get another $340,000 in CARES Act funding, and our administrative team will be working in the coming days to determine the most efficient use of these new funds. That is the extent of what we have been told that we will get in CARES Act funding thus far. One of the things that we do know is that there is a technology grant. The application period for this grant just opened today. And the purpose of this grant is to provide hotspots and internet-enabled devices to students. The state has $50 million in federal CARES Act funding to distribute to the schools for this purpose. If you look at the technology grant, at first it was listed as a matching technology grant, and just today we found out that no matching will be required. The state changed that requirement due to the feedback that matching funds were too cumbersome at this point in time. By virtue of Ohio law, the CARES Act and federal funds are held in funds separate and distinct from the general fund. So therefore, these funds, Fund 507, Fund 510, are not part of our district's 5-year forecast. As we move to the next slide, we'll take a look at the recent developments in our general fund, our 5-year forecast fund. So as we look at our back to school plans and the cost of those plans, we know that we're in a rapidly changing environment. So I want to make it clear that the update to the 5-year forecast is as of today, August 10th, but we know the coming weeks are going to bring some changes, as our back to school plans get refined, and also as our state and federal government continue to refine and make changes with the funding. So it's very important that our 5-year forecast remain very flexible, and upon changes and refining plans, both ours and the state governments, this 5-year forecast, the numbers could look very differently in a couple of weeks. But since May, to look at where we are today, there's been 2 major changes to our forecast. The district finished our fiscal year June 30, and we finished our fiscal year with a positive variance to our bottom cash balance line of $56,812. And as Scott mentioned earlier, his recommendation is that we will not have all-day kindergarten in the upcoming school year. What that means for our 5-year forecast is that our revenues will be reduced by just under $800,000 in tuition for those all-day kindergarten.
Elena, may I add a comment here, please?
Sure.
I just want to make something clear because I think that I was not as clear in what I had said. The all-day kindergarten is a postponement of the program. It is not intended to be forever. And so the number that appears on this screen is a year of tuition, but that doesn't necessarily mean that will happen in our school district, depending upon what happens from a health perspective. And so I certainly am not the treasurer, but I know when we model, we try to model the worst case scenario. And I just want to make sure in my comments regarding all-day kindergarten that the people who are parents of those students recognize that this is a postponement of our all-day kindergarten. This Board of Education and community has a desire for all-day, everyday kindergarten. It was part of the bond language. It was part of, you know, a lot of the change that has occurred in our school district. So we're not throwing this away. We are postponing it given the circumstance. And I apologize for interrupting, but I just want to make sure that I was clear on that.
No, actually, that's a very good point, and we want to make sure that we make that point. Because when you deal with a 5-year forecast, you have various unknowns, and you always want to go with the most conservative scenario. And that's why, and Scott's 100% correct, the treasurer always wants to put the worst case, most conservative scenario in there, because it's always easier to back up and adjust plans if things end up better than forecasted. It's very hard to go the other way when actual conditions are worse than the forecast. That does throw things into disarray. So very definitely, I'm glad you mentioned that this is a full year's revenue forego of 80K tuition, just because I want to make sure we have the most conservative scenario in our forecast. So if you look at the numbers there and the projected cash balance, you can see that these two major changes since May have reduced our bottom cash balance by around 740,000. Of course, as the administrative team, we will continue to look for cost efficiencies to replace this loss of revenue as we go forward. So we're just in the midst of this school year financial planning. We're going to have to stay flexible to be able to have revenues to spend when we need them, but we also will continue to look for cost efficiencies and make sure that we capture any savings that present themselves. Moving to the next slide, it's just a graphical representation of the changes in the forecast from May to August. So more to come on the forecast as we continue on our planning and as we continue to get information on any federal stimulus dollars coming our way. I think that, yeah.
So at this time, we're open for a conversation or a question regarding the model.
Scott, can you hear me? I just had a question, thinking about in high school how students rush out of classes and they crowd in the hallway. Has the team began looking at methods to reduce crowding in the hallways at the high school level at least?
I know that Mr. Sears was in a conversation today with Dave Spencer on that particular topic, and I believe that our high school administration, as well as most likely department chairs and teachers, will be working on ways to do that. Another reason why I like the staggered start, so we can kind of get the protocol down before we have a full complement of students in the building.
Yeah, if I were to jump in, Dee Dee, I know that we've got signs where we can do directional arrows and kind of control the flow in the hallway, but it really is going to come down to our two high schools definitely have different footprints and how those buildings believe they can control the flow of students. But I know that's been an ongoing conversation and how we'll do that. And we do have some directional things going on as far as how to maintain that. But I think the staggered start will help those kids to kind of see what the pattern is also.
Okay, what about, we talked about aides in the middle school, correct? You have 2 aides for the middle school? Did you think about putting aides in the high school?
We don't have the same circumstance at the high school that we do in the middle school regarding
Okay.
the supervision of the areas that we will have the aides be helping us.
Okay.
Would you mind if I ask a question? I'm gonna have to get off here probably soon. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Leslie.
Sorry, I'm like in the middle of nowhere and this is the only spot I have internet access and I'm about to probably lose it. So before I get off, I just wanna, first of all, thank you to Scott and the team for trying to figure out all of these logistics. But beyond that, I've been a proponent of a blended start. And, you know, I said this to Forrest earlier, maybe one of the smartest, pragmatic things I heard throughout the last couple of weeks is from somebody who said, we've never been through any of this before. No one has. So why not ease back in, you know, a week, 2 weeks, whatever, before we go full force so that everybody's on the same page and acclimated, and we got, especially the little kids, you know, to get them to understand what we need from them. So, you know, I realize that's not the entire board consensus. Well, that isn't the board consensus, but I do really appreciate the staggered start option. And I think that gives us some of what I had hoped to see anyway, to kind of just ease into it and see what works and what won't work. I know there are a lot of nuances, and the teachers out there that have emailed and said, what about these things? You guys know what's happening in the buildings, so we need to hear those things so that we can work them out. So, you know, thank you for all of that. I'm gonna have to get off, but I just wanna quickly say I support the superintendent's recommendations and, you know, again, teachers, bus drivers, everyone out there, this is going to be a crazy year, at least fall semester to start. So just thank you for your flexibility and your grace and your patience and everything else. So I'm going to get back to the wilderness out here before my phone dies and my internet connection goes. I have like 1 bar left, I think. So thank you guys. Have a good night. Good luck with everything. Scott.
All right. Patty?
I had a couple questions, but
Sure.
I'll wait my turn.
Oh, go ahead.
Go. I know that we were presented with some costs, the Apex Learning, the AK K-5 accelerated curriculum, microphones and cameras, Chromebooks, study hall monitors, and then of course the loss of the tuition, cleaning supplies. So that comes to like 690. And on Alana, your slide, you have some money. So is some of that cost being offset by some dollars?
Yes, actually, the Chromebooks, the majority of the technology to date has been spent out of the Fund 507. We still are refining our plans for where the online curriculum is going to be charged. I know that Greg had some money in his budget, general fund budget, that he was realigning, but perhaps we could go ahead and switch back over and get this out of federal grant money. You always want to spend federal grant money first. The end date, these grant funds all have to be spent by December 30th of this year. So we always want to do that first. And in addition, we want to look at some personnel costs. We know that we have some aids coming up. We know that the federal government has required us to give 80 hours if someone tests positive or if they're off due to COVID. So that's some of the things. There are so many unknown expenses coming up. But yeah, to answer your question, the majority of the technology has been purchased, and we have actually already waiting on those to come in. They're already encumbered and ordered.
My other question is, I was on a OSBA call. They have them, you know, the town halls weekly, and they always have a legal segment. And so they were saying, if you submit a plan back to traditional, that is an approved plan, then you do get federal dollars. In addition, you get language that helps support liability, say. Do you know anything about that? They didn't give any dollars at that time. It was just kind of presented that this stuff is coming. And I go, it seems like we would be able to qualify. And I don't know if any additional information has come through.
Nothing that I think that what they're talking about is in the second round of stimulus funding that the feds or the Congress is still debating. One of the things President Trump has put forward is that the schools who are opening in a full traditional model should be the ones that get the money because it is the most expensive model at this point in time to bring the kids in and to pay for all the additional space and the staff that's needed to safely social distance and also for all the PPE that's necessary. But that could well be a requirement that comes with the second round of stimulus dollars. Everything that I mentioned tonight, believe it or not, is coming from the first stimulus package that was passed back in, I believe it was March 27th or something like that. This is simply the flow of those dollars to the district. It takes a while for it to make it from the federal government through the state budget and then to ODE, and then they prepare the application. So the whole process takes a long time, but I believe that's what they were referencing is that full traditional model could well be a requirement in the second round of funding.
All right, Elizabeth?
Believe it or not, I don't have any questions. I've asked them all for months and weeks, and I really honestly just want to take a moment to make a couple comments on how exceptional our team is. To be one of the few districts that is able to pull this off in consideration of all sides of the conversation is remarkable. In the past week in particular, I have gotten texts from friends who are teachers, everything from one who's recovering from cancer to one who is begging to go back, one who desperately doesn't want to go, and the other is like, please let us go. And these are the tensions that we're all living in. And it's so difficult to please everyone. So proud of us for figuring out a way to go back. I think the staggered start, while personally that's very difficult when I have 3 elementary students and I'm a full-time working mom. I told Scott and Forrest this today. As a person, that's very difficult. As a school board member, I know that that's the best thing for the community. I know that that will help the kids ease in, it'll help the teachers ease in. So I'm really proud of us for considering that. The other thing I wanted to comment on is this all-day kindergarten, because I am one of those families that's affected by that. I've been looking forward to this forever. I have a 3rd grader, a 6th grader, and a kindergartner. They were all gonna be in the same building all day for 1 year ever, and it's not gonna happen. So I just want to encourage the parents who are in my shoes that I know this is difficult. We all know this is very difficult, that you have to scatter and find half-day care for a 5-year-old with 2 weeks notice. We know. We are just confident that this is the best thing for the district. So I'm with you. We'll figure it out. I think we're blessed that we are even able to try to go 5 days starting in September. So I think we just need to try to look at it that way, that if we get this right out of the gates, we hopefully can keep going, versus if we messed up those first 2 weeks, we may have to back out. So we're all in this together. I know that's a trite phrase right now, but well done. This plan has my support.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I can echo that. I know this has been months in coming, and it has, there's been a lot of variables that have come through. I do appreciate Donna Lawver in our last meeting of talking about a transitional period, like we're talking about today. I think it's with the weekends and the way we're starting with a Thursday, Friday, and then a weekend to consider what happened in those days, and a couple more days to improve upon that, and then a short week to see how it goes, and then have a long weekend to truly sit down and consider the positives and negatives. And there certainly is, it will not go without any hitches. I know that. But that, just like we've been working through in the past since March, is trying to deal with the situations as they arise. Yeah, there's been a tremendous amount of work, and I think everybody understands that. Everybody has been working hard on to try and get this not even right. We've all been hesitant. It's not a safe return. It's as safe as we can. We're learning as we go along. And we'll be doing that. I see that all the way through this year. I mean, it'll be like this, a constant reevaluation process as we go. So, but I've been very impressed with everybody's hard work. I mean, we come at it from different angles, but to get to a point where we are is great. And I hope that we can maintain that at least until we get the kids back into school. So I appreciate everything. Do we need to make a motion to accept these recommendations?
I think the board has already approved the plan. Tonight was iterations to the plan, so really you've already sort of done that. If you would like to do that, I'm more than happy to have that happen.
Do we have to approve the memorandum of understanding?
We do. That's the next agenda item. So this is, well, I would suggest with the changes in the ADK and the change in the start time, it's not really a change in the calendar, but there is, obviously it's a different thing. I would suggest that we go ahead and make a motion to approve the superintendent's plan. Can I get a motion for that?
I'll make a motion that we approve the superintendent's plan.
You get a second?
This is the plan to do the staggered start.
Correct.
From August 27th to September 4th or 5th, correct?
It'll be through September 1st, and then with a full start on September 2nd.
On that Wednesday. Okay, agreed. I'll second the motion.
So as far as discussion on that, as well as the changes in the ADK program, so the entirety of the plan. Robert?
Ms. Joyce,
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor,
Yes.
Mrs. Barber,
Yes.
Dr. Hayes.
Yes. All right, thank you. We'll move on now to item 5.1 MOU. Mr. Prebles or Mr. Broadwater?
Mike.
All right. Item 5.1 is the memorandum between the Forest Hills School District and Forest Hills Teacher Association. I will say what we always say, the board was presented with this material prior to the meeting and reviewed it. I want to thank Donna Lauber and her group for working with us. This has been quite a process to get it to where we can provide the best education for our kids, as well as provide the opportunity for our staff to have a little bit of flexibility in how they want to deliver their instruction. And I think everybody has seen that the issue of quarantining can be an issue, and we need to be flexible on how we deliver instruction. And I believe this memorandum of understanding will do that. So the MOU really has two parts. The first part is does deal with quarantining. If an employee, staff member, teacher, is required to use the 10 days provided through the FFCRA due to a quarantine or a direct quarantine due to the school or exposure at school, what we would like to do, or what this MOU does, is if that same teacher is directed to quarantine again throughout the school year, and it's a direct result of exposure during school, we will put that teacher on a paid administrative leave, so it will not charge their sick days simply because they were exposed at school. So that is the first part under number 1. Part A allows for that. Part B, those teachers that are teaching in the virtual academy, we have included in there that they will be able to return to their original assignment once we no longer have the need for the virtual academy, which hopefully is sooner than later. But that does allow those teachers to return to their original assignment. The second part to the MOU, which is very, very important, probably at the secondary level, but also at the elementary, but it allows us to provide live streaming, or what you would call synchronous education in the classroom, if the teacher chooses to do that. It allows the teacher to do recorded and place it on Schoology, and that's called asynchronous learning. We have, Mr. Prebles talked about the Apex software. They have the ability there, and then some flexibility in scheduling when at all possible. So again, I would like to thank Donna and her team, and certainly they pushed back where they needed to push back, and we wanted to take care of our students as well as our staff and provide the best possible instruction, not knowing from one day to the next what that may mean for kids or staff. And we believe this provides what we need to do for our kids. So with that, the superintendent recommends the board approve the MOU between the Forest Hills School District and the Forest Hills Teachers Association as shown in the attachment.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement or understanding between the Forest Hills School District and the Forest Hills Teachers Association.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Ms. Cropper?
Ms. Joyce,
Yes.
Mrs. Barber,
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor,
Yes.
Dr. Heights.
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, there is no executive session, so our next regular meeting of the Board of Education is on August 24th at 7 p.m. We do still intend to do that in a live fashion. We still do not know which place we are going to put it, but it will be, the notification will be made of that. So there are no
Can
other
I just
items.
make one last statement
Oh,
before
go ahead.
we adjourn? That's okay.
Certainly.
This is just my opinion, and I just want to stress to everyone watching and the parents, I want to reiterate what Scott said. You know, we have this plan, and it is contingent upon everyone performing their roles. The teachers, the admin, you know, the building, everyone in the building taking care of their responsibilities. Also means the parents, don't be sending your kids if they are ill. This is not the time to do it. Take their temperature. I've been, Scott and I've had repeated conversations. We've not come to 100% agreement. I want every single kid temperature checked before they walk into that building. It is logistically a difficult thing to overcome. I understand that. I keep pressing for it because I go, the last thing I want is to spread exposure. But parents have to take an active role in that. Make sure your kids are practicing the masks, being prepared as best as they can. If they are there and they're violating the policy, I mean, I told Scott, I go, you darn straight pick up that phone and that parent is going to come pick up their kid. That's how we really have to come together. The teachers, the admin, the parents, the kids. This is a partnership with all of us to make all of this work. My goal through all of this has been education. I want my kids in that school. That's the best way for them to learn. But I can't do it alone. You guys have to be engaged and commit to this as well. That's my plea.
Yep, that is, yep, I think we all fully agree with that. So it's going to take all of us doing our part. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to, okay, go ahead,
You go.
Patty. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Patty, would you like to
We'll get
second
it
it?
together.
I'm going to go ahead and second it.
That'd be great. All right, Ms. Cropper?
Ms. Joyce,
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor,
Yes.
Mrs. Barber,
Yes.
Dr. Heights.